Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Cruz.
This is Dan.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
Nathan
This
East.
is Sebastian Younger.
This is David Lab.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick
I'm
Gillette.
Christopher
This is
Knopf.
Dr. Bob Greenberg.
I'm Laird Hamilton.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, I'm Mark Valley.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
This is Geoffrey D Calhoun on the Break It Down Show with Jon and Pete.
And now, the Break It Down Show with Jon Leon Guerrero, Mark Valley, and Pete A. Turner.
I appreciate you both being here with me, celebrating my birthday by having a bunch of shows. I'm going to take a picture and put it on the internet because that's what we do to make things happen.
You old-ass bastard. By the way, you both sound angelic, and I mean that in the straightest way that a guy can mean it and wear this tight, shiny T-shirt that I'm wearing.
I'm taking that for every way you mean it.
I mean it in all those ways.
I'm going to make sure I meditate on that when I'm sitting at the Pete and John altar tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, so seriously, thank you guys. I appreciate you guys doing the birthday thing with me. It's fun. We don't make that big of a deal on my birthday, but it's fun to do what you get to do, and I love to do this stuff, so here we are, and we're doing it.
I think that's pretty cool, man.
I completely hijacked John into this thing, Jeff, because I had a chance to grab him, and I'm like, well, I'm not, I did one with Mark, with Johnny Mosley, and John got left out on that one. So, John, here's what we're going to do. We're going to, one, support what Jeff does, because that's what we love to do. People have been excited about it, so I want to continue to talk about his craft. We were going to break down Star Wars, which I believe you've seen a little bit.
I have.
And then beyond that, any more of a schedule than that wouldn't suit the purposes of what we normally do. So, Jeff, you just keep doing incredible things. And, of course, we want to support you because you support us. No shit, we also love people building and creating things. So let me just say you're off to a great start to the year. And anybody who is interested in writing a screenplay needs to at least participate with your new website thing that you're doing with your groups. You can learn a lot there. It's fantastic. Tell us really quick about that.
Yeah, so Script Summit is a screenplay contest we started that is part of the Action on Film Fest Mega Fest in Las Vegas. And the Script Summit will be over there coinciding with that festival. We're bringing a bunch of screenwriters together, doing seminars, Q&A, table reads. We're going to have special guest speakers. We're going to have cash prizes for winners. It's going to be insane. But I wanted to push past just having one summit in August. I wanted to have a virtual summit where I can bring screenwriters together that can talk every day and have exposure to each other and network and help each other. So we created the Script Summit Writers Group on the Mighty Network, which is a fantastic app that gives us all kinds of great control in creating really interesting conversations and fun polls. We post gigs on there for writers to go and find gigs. We have fun comments we do about the latest movies and things like that. And then everybody just helps everybody with questions. And I'm on there and so are my script doctors. So, you can have access to us as well, just being part of the community.
I want to say something about the screenwriters community because this is something that I don't know that everybody knows. And if there are listeners out there who are closet screenwriters and they're sitting at home in some town that's maybe Los Angeles, but maybe not, maybe 3,000 miles from Los Angeles. Sure. The screenwriting community is a very special creative force, and it's a very supportive creative force. And anybody who has an inkling to tell a story in the screenplay format that doesn't yet have a hand on the community, I would encourage somebody to get to writing and get to sharing. And one of the things that really excites me about what you do is that you've sort of put together a hub for the lovable community of screenwriters, because screenwriters support each other in ways that are, I guess, similar to the way other artists support each other. But I think because screenwriting is such a solitary endeavor, it goes beyond the way, say, two musicians support each other. And being a musician, I love, the support of fellow musicians. But also, having written a screenplay, you enter into a fraternity of people who engage in a solitary endeavor. And there's something very special about the support that you get from people who can commiserate from that solitary endeavor. We, of course, like Pete said, we'd love to support you because you're doing something fun, but I think that there is a soul to the support of the screenwriting community, that you've done something that is unique among community of people who is really very lovable.
Well, I really appreciate that. It's kind of interesting that you mentioned the community, because we started Script Summit to actually kind of change the culture around screenwriting, because what happens with what's very popular is you go to a script doctor, they give you notes, and the notes are usually incredibly harsh and terrible, and they'll say things, and this is very common. You'll never make it, give up, why are you even doing this? And for somebody like me that came up the ranks on their own, learning how to do it, and then reading 39 books on screenwriting and finding mentors to guide me, it was important for me to kind of usher in a more positive community for the future generation of writers. So I wanted to bring this about and show that, we can be script doctors and expert screenwriters and still help the younger generation and the community in general by being a force of positivity and reassurance and education, and not just saying, oh, well, this script is terrible, you'll never make it. We want to do more than just provide notes. We want to develop writers. And that's really what our goal is to do.
That's a great goal. Well, it's one thing to offer up the support like that, but I think the byproduct is that you elevate the art form. Because the more people get involved in screenwriting, the more accessible it is to the great wordsmiths around. Because working screenwriters in Los Angeles, well, there are a whole bunch of those, but
yeah,
screenwriting is not that accessible to people in other parts of the country, or seemingly accessible or seemingly fruitful to other people in other parts of the country, and that's just not really the case. I mean, there's no reason why somebody with a great story and a great ability to tell it with some gregariousness and some charm and some wit can't come from anywhere. We see the result of somebody from some part of the country that is not Los Angeles, and they get their due because they've done good work. Man, that's terrific. And you elevate the art form.
Absolutely. It doesn't have to be a totally exclusive art form.
That's true.
One of the things you've done with me and trying to help me write this screenplay that I'm doing a terrible job of staying on top of, but you have made the work controllable. I'm not writing. I was literally talking to Mark Valley today about this, and I talked about how you break down. You said you need a step outline. 27 things have to happen in a 3-play movie. Maybe it's a little different, but if you start right there, 9 things have to happen in each act. And these things that have to happen, there are certain things. There must be a turn. There must be an exchange of knowledge. These things are there. So you start to formulaically approach your story, and then you can say, okay, I've got choices here. And where I'm at right now is I've got these 27 steps pretty well laid out, but there's some choices that I'm not sure about. So now I'm doing what Hilliard has taught me, and I'm trying to get into the characters and let the characters kind of talk to me and tell me what decisions to make. I absolutely could not do that without your advice and your counsel. Like, you've really helped me to use the things I've learned from Hilliard and the things I've learned from you to make this a manageable piece of work, even though it's impossible. It's impossible to get a movie written, let alone write this script. So, dude, you're creating that environment where it's not negative. It's not you should quit this and go work somewhere else. You make it accessible.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, I mean that's the secret sauce right there. That's the 12 secret spices. Is having that good outline will really kind of guide your screenplay, and then once you get into it, and the characters will start telling you where they want to go, the motivations they want to have, and all of that comes from really knowing who they are, what their motivations are, what their fears are, what their secrets are, what they don't want people to know. And that will really inform your story for where it needs to go. So yeah, he has great advice.
Writing a screenplay is hard, and some people never get through that first one. And I think that as much as we can support people getting through that first one and getting that feeling of having one under your belt, the first screenplay that I ever wrote was, I have a stepson, and my wife has an ex-husband, and we love each other and get along great now. But there was a time in my life when my stepson was young and my wife's ex-husband was, you know, we were all young and we all were fighting over custody and living arrangements and all kinds of stuff like that. So I decided to channel my aggressions for all my thoughts onto the page, and I wrote a screenplay that contained the 31 or 27 or however many, whatever the number was, it was something like that, ways that I wanted to kill him. And it was terrible because there was, you know, not a great story. But what it gave me was the ability to say, hey, I've got this 85-page document that is a screenplay that I wrote, and now I know I'm capable. And so you get over that hurdle, and it's an enormous hurdle, even if you're writing something that sucks, which I did. And I can imagine that the encouragement that I felt having gotten over that hurdle with that terrible screenplay, which honestly I was proud of until I wrote something better, and then I realized, boy, that thing really kind of stunk. But if you are able to clear that hurdle with something that is actually an admirable piece of work, where you get some help, you get some guidance, you get some support, you get some people who know what they're doing, who can nudge you, and really all you're talking about in terms of the notes and the encouragement is just little gentle nudges. Because when you're going down the path, sometimes, you know, your left tire hits that, hits the bumps, and you go da-da-da-da-da-da. And what you're doing for the aspiring writer is just say, hey, get back in the middle of the lane. There you go. Yeah. Stay right there. You got a groove going. Keep that up. And identifying where the grooves are and where the sweet spots are and where the momentum starts to build. And you're getting people, first of all, more people get to clear that first hurdle. And then more people get to clear that first hurdle with a product that's actually readable. I don't want to go so far as to say, and you end up with something good, you know, subjective. Yeah. Well, I want everybody to find they're good, wherever that is, you know?
Well, I mean, you've written your screenplay, which is fantastic. A lot of people start something like that and are unable to finish it because writing a screenplay is like learning a new language. It's incredibly difficult. So there's definitely a great feeling of accomplishment with
I'm pretty creative, and I really wanted to kill him.
But
we can make jokes about it now because, like I said, we're in different places. But
But writing your screenplay and getting finished, getting all of that emotional junk out, is actually quite cathartic, and really gives you an emotional release, and it even gives you a different perspective on the situation. So I really believe that everybody has at least one really good screenplay in them. Could they write a novel? Yeah. Sure, of course. But, or even poems, but screenplays seem to be, what people want to at least attempt because movies are so prevalent in our society. The other thing with the We Fix Your Script and the Script Summit is we don't really see ourselves so much as script doctors. I mean, that is what we are, but we really view ourselves as mentors. And so we want to mentor people and to guide them through this process, this incredibly difficult process of screenwriting. And when they get lost, kind of be the Obi-Wan Kenobi to their Luke Skywalker and show them the right way to go, you know?
Yeah. Okay. Well, the other thing is the mentorship is important because if somebody is interested in actually being a working screenwriter or, writing something that actually gets made, the only way to do that is to write a lot. And it comes down to, the fact that Prince had so many albums or Tom Petty had so many albums and they had so many hit records. It's because they churned out for every great song of theirs that we loved, they turned out 200 songs that were either mildly okay or maybe sucked. And so you just have to churn out a volume of product that allows you the opportunity to get good at it. And so when you're mentoring somebody, you're not only accelerating the process of getting good by giving them some parameters and giving them some guidance, you're also allowing them just a flat-out opportunity to exercise the muscle. And there's nothing really more important than the ability to exercise the muscle and to do it in a supportive environment. Now, with WeFixYourScript.com, you can do that from anywhere. And so everybody who's sitting in a Starbucks and churning out something, you know, like you said, that's cathartic, there is hope for the result of that thing and hope for the quality of that thing to be better and to be better faster. So why is that important? Because you're going to need 10 of them to get to one good one.
It's really interesting.
Do you agree?
I would agree, and I'd also build on that, because we've had several first-time writers come to us that we've worked with and have now won multiple awards. We just had a client
on the first one.
Oh yeah, they came to us with some broken scripts that were really had some compelling, interesting, and original material in it. So we worked with them, and I mean this one client we had, she just made it to the semifinals of Cinefest, which is a decent script contest, and then she won and then she placed in 2 others.
Wow.
And I just had another guy win the LA Shorts. So, and he was a first-time writer. So you're absolutely right. It does take a lot of experience and a lot of writing and rewriting. But when people work with us, they get to even capitalize on the knowledge that we have, so they can, like you said, even accelerate their own learning process instead of having to, just like I did, reading 39 books over 10 years period, and just kind of grinding away and figuring out what doesn't work and what does work. We get to actually help them say, hey, don't do this technique. Don't read this book even though everybody else says it's amazing, because it's garbage. Use this technique instead. So I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. And then on top of that, they can capitalize on what we have as well.
I wanted to jump in here and point out a couple of things. We're talking about screenplay writing, and there are so many artistic endeavors that we all could be doing. One of the things that I've been seeing from recording Popping the Bubble, my technology show, is that jobs that we think we have today are gone. So as the audience is listening, think about what your job is and understand that most everybody around you, their job is going to be something different in 10 years, because what they do right now won't be there. Accountants are going to be largely replaced by smart contracts. All kinds of things. The fishing industry, we learned from Famous Foods, is going to be completely redefined. And there aren't going to be thousands and thousands of professional fishing boats going out dragging lines. It's going to be different. So we're all going to have to do something else. If you have a passion for this kind of thing, whatever it is, you need to start thinking about developing those muscles that Jon was talking about. I drive a race car, and sometimes my left front wheel gets on that rumble strip and it rumbles. But even when I don't do that, I still have to find the fastest way around the track. And that still takes 30, 40, 50, 100 laps before I'm really in the groove and being as fast as a professional. So I can't. And the other thing is, I've learned from talking to a lot of older folks, is they all wish they would have started doing that thing that they loved earlier. My uncle paints at a very, very high level. He said he should have started 20 years earlier. So all of us need to pursue these things. And whether it's screenwriting where Jeff can help you, or it's something else, shoot, let me know what it is. And if you need a resource, I'll find it. Kate from Benicia wants to learn how to play the accordion. Well, Jon and I can find you someone in your hometown that can teach you the accordion, and go do it. I want to change gears, and we've all seen Star Wars, and I thought we might just talk about some of the things that the script does, because there's definitely there's definitely a requirement for that script to do certain things outside of tell the story. You know, I've got to bring in all of these other characters for kind of like shout outs, right? So you have the character, and I can't remember her name, the one with the goggles that they Skyped in with. Chewbacca's got to be there. All these things got to be accounted for, and all of that stuff takes time in the story. What were your thoughts overall of the screenplay as you saw it, as a screenplay fixer-upper guy? What do you think?
I kind of feel, as he wrote the screenplay, Rian Johnson was kind of really letting everybody know that, like, this is mine now. And so I think that's kind of what caused a lot of tension with people, is that he was trying to go for something original and different, but in so doing was kind of insulting the fans of the base. There's little things he did to kind of, I don't want to say like a middle finger, but it was almost like, yeah, this is my story. Where when Ray hands the, okay, spoiler alert, everybody, there's going to be lots of those. When Ray hands him the lightsaber, right? Everybody going in that film thought that he would flick it on or wave it around and be like, you know, welcome back, old friend. He tosses it over his shoulder. Now, I started laughing in the theater when he did that, not because it was a funny bit, because that's what I would have written in there. If I came in and I wanted to be like, this is my story, nobody's going to tell me how to write it, I'd have had him throw the damn thing out, because he's also saying, guess what, J.J. Abrams, I'm in charge now. And so that takes the movie in a whole different direction that people really didn't expect to happen. And he peppered in things like that throughout the story, just constantly reminding everybody that we're in a whole different show now. Some people welcomed that, other people were very disappointed.
Good art divides the audience, right?
There you go. That's well said.
Would you agree with that statement, Jeff?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's a great statement.
I loved that, another spoiler alert, but I'm not going to really give it away, but I love that the movie opened with a joke.
Yeah.
You know, I thought that was a great way to put a signature on it right from the very beginning, and I thought it was a great signature, and it was a nod to what we really love about all things fantasy, not with a capital F, but with a small f. We go to the movies to escape, and it was a great way to mix in some humor, where we knew we were also going to see some, you know, epic battles and dogfights in spaceships and, you know, sword fights with lightsabers and stuff like that. So, you know, why not? I mean, there's humor peppered in all the Star Wars movies, but to start off with a bit like that, I thought was just terrific. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was a good joke. I was shocked that they had it at first, but then I got behind it.
Let me ask before we pick this one apart some more. Jeff, what's your favorite Star Wars movie?
Well, it's not because of quality-wise, but it's because I had a big moment in the theater when I was a kid. When I was 6 years old, I saw Return of the Jedi, and so that's my favorite.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's reason is a little different. Pete, how about you? Do you have a favorite Star Wars movie?
I think I like Return of the Jedi the best. You know, I was young enough that the fantasy really worked for me. And I liked Ewoks at that age. I'm like, these Ewoks are cool. Yeah. It hasn't aged well as my favorite, and I do like the first one. I also, you know what? I'm pretty easy to please in a lot of ways, and in other ways, I'm not. So I'll just stick with Return of the Jedi.
How about you?
Irv Kirchner. I like The Force Awakens.
Oh, okay.
I liked that there were, you know, a variety of new characters, that they were relatable in a lot of ways. I mean, Star Wars, in a lot of ways, I think, is a movie about race, and there's at least the presence of race and people's attitudes toward race in those movies. And there were, and you know, race in those movies could be depicted in, some people just can't stand androids. Right. Some people just can't stand, you know. Yeah. So there are a lot of ways to make a statement in those films that I think The Force Awakens had plenty of characters that were relatable for me. And I love Donnie Yen.
Yeah, he was awesome.
So in the story, there were some things that have caused some people some heartburn. I know that for me, one, it was 2.5 hours long. I don't understand why you make that movie that long and maybe not break it into two pieces. Why doesn't J.J. Abrams say, give me 20 extra minutes of stuff in the back end and we'll put out a movie at Christmas and a movie in May?
I wouldn't break that movie into two pieces. It had a whole lot of fat that needed to be trimmed.
Okay, so you think you just make it leaner?
Oh my God, so much leaner. There's entire sequences in that film that don't motivate the story forward whatsoever. It's just eye fluff. Even if then, I mean, you want to talk about like the scene with Rey following Luke around as he's milking aliens and killing fish, and I mean that's like 10 minutes of screen time. It's totally unnecessary. All of that could be cut. And I would have even rewritten that scene completely to reinforce Rey's will, because she just follows him around like a lost puppy, which I kind of thought made the character seem weak and desperate. I would have had her plop outside of his hut and just meditate for a day or two until he finally agreed, to take her in. Because there was an old Buddhist monk story about a student that went to a monastery and wanted to train, and they said no because his ego was too big. They refused him, so he sat outside of the monastery for 3 days straight and meditated in the rain and at night, didn't eat or anything until they finally let him in. I would have used that for the Rey character. I think it would have been far more telling, instead of this whole
that's pretty cool.
lost puppy thing. Yeah, so I think that was a really missed opportunity. And just showing that scene would have only taken like 30 seconds of just cutting through. You could have done fun things with time, showing her laying out there or sitting out there. And instead of this, 10 minutes of following Luke around because we really want to show an animatronic milking breast. I mean, none of that made sense. And that was one of the jokes that was supposed to be funny, but it just came off as forced. So it didn't really play right, and that's why you have people complaining about it. Whereas the humor with Poe Dameron earlier on, where he's waiting on hold for Admiral Hux, is actually quite funny because that's established as his character. It harkens back to Force Awakens, for when he's pulled to his knees in front of Kylo Ren. He says, "Do I talk first? Do you talk? Who talks first? I can't tell who talks first because you got the mask on." That's the character. The character,
right?
Yeah, the character's snarky like that. So that's why that scene really, really works. And it reestablishes, like, Poe's kind of a witty guy. He's kind of like a little bit like Han. Trying to force bits in, though, with, like, Chewbacca not eating, I can't remember what those, a pork on a stick. That's like a forced comedy. It doesn't work. They needed to stick more truer to, like, the natural type of elements they had for comedy coming from characters. Anyway, I mean, those are just my thoughts.
That fat that you're talking about trimming out, you just talked about one little segment, and I get it. That Luke is reluctant to do things. He's been burned in the past. He's an angry old man. I totally get it. But you're right. Having Rey follow him around, we're not sure what to do with her character.
This episode of the Break It Down Show is brought to you by Lions Rock Productions.
That's us.
We publish, evaluate, and develop podcasts just like this one, consult others to build their own, and create associated content and content marketing strategies.
So if you're launching or expanding your social media presence, your business, or your personal brand, or if you just want to take your media presence to the next level,
reach out to us on Twitter
at Pete A. Turner
or at JohnLG69
at The Break It Down Show.
There's 1,000 ways to get a hold of us.
Now enjoy the show.
Also, I'm having a little trouble in terms of the latest movies in the ease with which people acquire the ability at advanced level to use the Force. And while I love having, a little Chinese girl as being a heroine, and like that's fantastic that we're at a point in time where that's possible. But she went from being like a mechanic to this pilot, and she's flying things around. And
Yep.
Doesn't the scriptwriter, don't they owe us something to stick to canon, or at least if you're going to break canon, don't they have to do something to allow us to have a bit of a bridge there?
The problem with her arc is that it's solely tied to Finn. So she doesn't really have her own arc so much. Their whole travel to the casino world and and then trying to blow up the tracking device and all of that stuff, it was designed to foster a connection between the characters and create a romance, because there's no romantic B plot really in the film, except for the Kylo Rey thing, which I think is really, really good because those two characters have such solid chemistry. I love it. But Rey and Finn, there is no chemistry. And throughout the whole story, you never see the chemistry develop. You never see them really like each other. So, and out of the blue, when she kisses him, you're like, what the hell just happened? It's totally taken out of the blue. And you're right, yeah, she was a mechanic, now she's a pilot, now she's shooting. Like, it doesn't work for some reason. And I would have looked at that script and reworked it heavily with their arc and put it, I mean, it could be a casting issue too. Maybe the actors just don't have any chemistry, and so they're having a hard time selling that relationship. But I would have really reworked some scenes and lingered a little bit heavier on the heart scenes to kind of create that moment, because we almost had it when Finn realized that the casino wasn't as great as he thought it was. He developed some sympathy for, I think her name, what was her name? Rose? I can't remember. Sympathy isn't the same. Sympathy isn't the same as attraction, and it's not the same as love. It's just a more nurturing form of pity. So you don't really expect a relationship to develop. It needed a heavy rework and potentially cutting out all of that stuff. I mean, the whole point of the casino scene is to show a newer version of the cantina scene, which they feel they have to put into every single Star Wars movie, at least nowadays.
That whole storyline, that whole plot, I agree with you, was sort of needless. And it seemed, if you're going to give me a timeline of 18 hours, you're going to Skype in someone who tells you where you maybe could find somebody. You know, I get it, you're looking for Hail Marys and things to do, but boy, what a Hail Mary that was! And from the second they try, it was like this whole it was like they wanted to jam in some kind of video game based plot. You know, where like, now you have to get the key of Mordor. Now you've got to go get
They got to find the blue key.
Yeah, you got the gold key. You got to see old Rip over there at the key box back across the other side of the thing, and it just, that whole thing felt like, gosh, like they got advised by Disney that you're going to create this branch. You know, it's more like a commercial in this case. And it really kind of bugged me, because you go there and then the second they get there, they're compromised and the whole thing is ridiculous. And I had a lot of problems with that whole storyline. And then obviously they get there and the whole thing fails and Benicio del Toro sells them out. Okay. You're just asking too much of me from that whole branch of the story.
Yeah. So the whole story mechanics there is that they're trying to constantly kind of up the stakes. That's really what they're trying to do. He knows he's got a 2.5 hour movie. He's going to start losing people, so he has to constantly up the stakes. So they have to keep running into these situations of, oh no, we're stuck. How do we overcome this? Oh no, we're even worse off. How do we overcome it? Which is totally normal, right?
Right.
That's normal. That's normal for a screenplay. But when it gets to like ridiculous proportions, where when they get to the base, now they're at the base. Now they have to escape the base that they just got to. I was like, all right, guys, we're at a point now where you're upping the stakes way too much. I mean, I understand that this is an expensive movie. But by the time we get to the base and we have to leave the base, I'm like, now you're just going to start losing people, you know, because it gets to the point of almost parody, where it's just ridiculous. I would have cut that down significantly. But when they have big budgets like this, they feel like they have to really go, you know, dial it up to 11 to quote Spinal Tap. But there's risk with that.
My inability to suspend disbelief when it came to the Casino Planet, my inability to suspend disbelief came from serious shortage of space hookers. It's a Casino Planet, for crying out loud. Where are all the space hookers?
My God.
I'm going to leave it up to Pete whether or not he leaves that in.
Yeah, it's the high-end space horse. Yeah, but there were problems, and I hate to just beat up on that storyline, the implausibility of Rose's rise to being this warrior hero when she's so enamored with Finn early on. You know, that thing, trying to find a coder. Oh, find a different guy. Okay, great. All these improbable things.
That was the Deus Ex Machina right there, where they're in the prison and they run into a famous coder.
Right.
That's out of the blue.
Yeah, and then equally out of the blue, bringing the high-end boss stormtrooper back in, and it just seemed it really was hard. And it
was a waste of a character.
Yeah, and I'm totally down with seeing some Chinese girl be a dominant heroine character. Let her be a pilot from the start. Another area where I thought they really missed out was you have this incredible pilot who can go out and wants to fight, and for all intents and purposes, you're doomed. Everybody's going to die. No, we don't want to fight right now. Like, are you kidding me? If the guy wants to go, you've got no plan but to escape to the planet. Either say that to him, we're all going to pop out this way, or let the guy go fight.
Yeah. So the Poe insurrection storyline, man, I have issues, because the character, it doesn't feel, I don't know, it doesn't feel right, because the guy is on board with the rebellion. I mean, he was out in the last movie getting the plans to bring back to Leia. He wasn't risking lives. He didn't have a bunch of guys with him. It was just him and his droid. So now in this movie, all of a sudden, he's out. He's going to let the whole B-Wing fleet die, which, by the way, as a old X-Wing versus TIE Fighter Star Wars video game, they had B-Wings in. I was so excited to see that in the movie. I was like, oh, that's pretty exciting, because we've never seen that before. But to now just say, oh, he's just going to let everybody die, and he doesn't really show any emotional remorse with that decision. I don't know if you noticed, because he's a hell of an actor. And I don't remember registering any scene where he was, like, upset that dozens of people died. Which, for me, that made me pretty concerned. And then he's willing to overthrow his own commander because he's so worried about a lack of decision. It almost paints him as a villain.
Yeah.
And I have a real problem with that. They could have rewritten that storyline. They could have cut it out completely. I mean, you hate to do it, though, because you want that actor to play with that character, but I would have reworked it into some other kind of angle completely.
Let me ask you this. So in the attack on the Republic ship, Princess Leia, General Leia, is ejected from, and for all intents and purposes, we think she's dead, and then she forces herself back in. That seemed, especially given the fact that Carrie Fisher's passed, it seemed like that was a good moment to close that part of the chapter. As a screenwriter, why not let that be the case?
He put a hell of a weight on J.J. Abrams' shoulders to kind of figure out that plot line for the next movie, because she was supposed to be a big part of it. And it's such a sad loss, because Carrie Fisher was one of the greats, not just because she played Princess Leia, but because she was just a beautiful person in general. And also one of Hollywood's best script doctors, which a lot of people don't realize.
Oh, yeah.
She fixed screenplays all over the place and never put her name on it. And she's a proven writer. She's a successful novelist. She rewrote most of her dialogue for episode 4. Get this walking carpet out of my way. I mean, that's all her. Lucas didn't write that stuff. To lose her is such a tragedy. But yeah, I think that was a natural exit for the movie. And I had to wonder why they didn't do a quick recut before they released it and let her character be off there. It would have made the movie significantly different, but that doesn't mean it wouldn't have been better.
We're going to go with it would have been better. We're going to go with it would have been better.
I think it would have been good.
Especially given the attrition of the Republic, everybody's dying, and you lose your leader. Like, it's that much more powerful.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, important viewpoint. I mean, when the leadership is dying off, that should trigger something serious. I want to break away and ask you this, Jeff. What's the last movie you watched?
Like in the theater or at home on television?
Wherever.
Oh.
Yeah. Whatever was the last thing that you?
I just watched a documentary. Actually, it was actually quite good.
Okay.
It was a Sasquatch documentary.
What was it?
It was the unwantable Sasquatch. I thought it was riveting, really fascinating. I just watched that the other day. As far as TV shows, I just binge watched all of Electric Dreams on Amazon, which was really good.
Okay, Electric Dreams, cool. Thanks for the recommendation. I just binge watched Westworld. Did either of you watch Westworld?
Yeah, so that's Jonathan Nolan, and he is one of my favorite writers.
Yeah, it was really strong.
Well, he's really good at manipulating time with his screenplays, going all the way back to Memento. Like, that's what he did. Interstellar, all that stuff, that's all him. People go, oh, Interstellar, they think Christopher Nolan. They don't realize that Jonathan wrote it. So
okay,
yeah, he's fantastic.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to go back to Star Wars for a second and ask you about Laura Dern and how she approached her role and how they wrote her in.
And wrote her out.
Well, and wrote her out immediately, yeah. Star Wars has a canon, Star Trek has a canon, and does the screenwriter have to be aware of both of those things so that she doesn't pull and maybe punt on the Picard move? I mean, these are things that matter to science fiction fans.
Are you talking about when she does the big sacrifice?
Yeah, like the Picard gambit is when you jump to light speed, but you do a micro jump. So there's all of a sudden there's two ships in the sky in front of you.
Oh yeah.
Right, so it's right up that thing, except for she's ramming, and it just seems to be. It's an interesting way to sacrifice yourself and destroy the ship. I don't know.
There was a missed opportunity. I mean, if you don't mind if I butt in here,
please.
That whole situation that ship should have been captained by Leia, and Lauren Holden there should have been a passing of the torch moment there, where Lauren Holden is the new Leia, and Leia takes that ship and she rams those other ships. I mean, that was a passing of the torch moment that got missed up. And because of that, we meet this great character, and she's gone in 20 minutes. I mean, I just didn't get it. I thought it was a total waste. But there's lots of issues with the chase scene. Like J. Michael Straczynski, who's a fantastic writer. He did Babylon 5. He's done a ton of stuff. He goes on Twitter the other day. He goes, why didn't one of the 6 ships jump ahead for a light speed, turn around, and blast them? I don't understand. And I'm like, well. You got a hell of a point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's any number of things they might have tried. If you were going to ram that ship, and if you could coalesce all these people onto things, why not take that frigate and jam that frigate into their neck? All these different options on things to do instead of just this sort of I don't know. I'm not the commander, but. Yeah, wheel around with that ship earlier. If you're going to ram it. Let's get to it. Let's not erase everybody. And if everybody's going to have the same basic fighting chance, get everybody on transports, whip that thing around, and light speed it right into them. Or any number of things. It was weird. I did enjoy the movie, though. I have to say that. I don't know that I need to see any more Star Wars movies, but that's more due to my old crotchetiness. And I just... the leaps are getting further for me, and I just have other things to do with my time. But I did enjoy the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it. I was entertained. I'm a big Star Wars fan. It's hard when you're a script actor to shut your brain off when you're watching a film now.
Yeah, I imagine that you're just flat ruined when it comes to the inability to not dissect a story.
Oh man, You're right. The only time, well, I mean, I use it as a system of measurement. So if I watch a movie or a show and I don't break it down, then that's a hell of a movie. That's a hell of a show. Because if it pulls me into the point
for the ride.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a mark that we also share here on the Break It Down show. Is if I'm editing and I get lost in editing, and I know John does the same thing, I'm like, wow, this is good right here. This is so fascinating.
What was the last really good movie you watched that pulled you into it?
One of the last movies I saw that really pulled me in was I watched Dunkirk, and I chose to watch Dunkirk again. Partly because I didn't get the timeline thing that Christopher Nolan did, and it was really hard to separate all of the wet English dudes with dark hair and light complexions. I was like, wait.
And no dialogue.
Right, and limited dialogue, and so I was like, wait, who, what? Okay, I mean, I could handle the airplane, to the yacht, to the ship, to the two dudes. I could handle all that, but the timing sequence, and I get why he did it after I saw the movie, but I did struggle with that. And I will also say this in that movie's defense, 350,000 people, a retreat across 3 miles of open ocean. That's incredible and an epic story, an hour 46.
Yep.
Star Wars 2.5 hours. They've got, if they're going to do that, they've got to do better.
Well, Pete, in Dunkirk, were they milking green fluids from any seaside creatures?
No.
Because I need about 15 minutes of that.
Were there too many cutesy, fartsy, cute little animals like the Muppet Show? Was that too? Because that's one of the things that Star Wars does too much of. In their goal to make a giant commercial, but I love the little chickens and absolutely the big giant horses that run, and I love the imagination about all the different aliens and stuff. But it just feels like it's a lot.
Yeah, a little bit visual overload. I'd say the last really good movie I watched was The Arrival with Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner. I don't know if you guys saw that one.
I hated that movie.
No, but you know what? I
Really?
will watch it now. Did you hate it?
I hated
I saw it.
Oh, I love that movie.
I saw its presence, and now I'm going to go, you hated it, Pete?
Hated it. It was, to me, it was terrible. The story never grabbed a hold of me. And it's been a while since I saw it, but there was just so much tension created, and they just didn't do anything with it.
Well, it was all internal, I mean, it was her struggle with loss. That's what I thought was so beautiful about it is her struggle with loss, even though she hasn't lost yet. And the writer that wrote that film, he did 100 drafts on that screenplay.
He should have done 120.
Oh my God.
So
Pete,
the movie.
Wow.
Okay, so here's how you make that movie better. A little less of the build-up. If it was the last 20 minutes of the movie, and then you gave me a little more of that, or spent less time getting there, and I don't know how. I'm gonna look how long that movie was. If you gave me a lot less of because I kept waiting, like, you better pay off, and then there was a payoff, but I'm like, that's like a 2-pump chump payoff, though.
Oh man, I loved it. That's okay.
Yeah, it is okay.
I think if you saw it as a 2-pump chump payoff, is there are you projecting, Pete?
No.
Is there
No.
I think this reflects perfectly for what John said is that great art divides.
Well, then how about this? That movie was an hour 55
true.
minutes. If they lost 25 minutes of bullshit tension creating, would we have been all right? I mean, if they can't stick the landing at 89 minutes in that movie.
That hour 55 flew by for me. I was in it deep. I mean, Amy Adams was killing that part. I was like, holy crap, is this girl on her way? I mean, because she went from, I think she was playing a cheerleader in some rom-com, so now she's crushing this scene. But that's cool. I totally respect that it wasn't true.
I think she does a great job in the movie. I really do think she's good in it. It's just take 30 seconds out of every overextended scene, and you've got your 25 minutes back.
You know why? You know why some directors do that? Because they, like, who really does it is Tarantino. They linger on characters after they're done performing their scene, because some directors feel that's where the truth is in the actor. After they've done their line, and then there's that pause, and then there's that break. The director feels that's the moment, that's the emotional truth to the scene. So then you end up getting these really long scenes. A lot of indie guys do it as well, but sometimes they don't have like the thoroughbred actors that can really pull it through. Others do as well. I mean, there's some fantastic indie actors out there, but that's why you get that.
I thought they got a discount on film at Kodak because Kodak was going out of business.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
man.
Wow.
I'm trying. I can't defend it anymore.
Yeah.
He's got it.
I will say this because I like to be fair. There's a lot of people that love that movie, and it was definitely worthy of nominations because it got a ton of nominations. But and I'm trying to think of the name of it. I saw the other movie that came out, the other sci-fi movie with Jennifer Lawrence, when they're asleep on a ship. I love that movie. That movie was fun.
I actually used that movie to teach
about how crappy it was.
No, I use it because Passengers where Arrival succeeded with showing an individual character striving with internal conflict. Passengers succeeded with showing that internal conflict, but through visual mediums. So, like when Chris Pratt's character in that film betrays her and he feels empty inside, they use some great, brilliant visual tricks where he goes in the closet, for instance, to grab a coat, but the closet is empty, right? And subconsciously, that's reflecting that Chris Pratt feels empty inside. And so I use that movie as ways to show writers how to use visual trickery to subconsciously show how a character feels to the audience. And so Passenger really succeeds with that tool. I mean, it's all over the movie when he's outside walking on the ship because he feels lost and alone. He looks out and he's surrounded by space. It just totally reinforces you've got this lost dude. Just brilliant moments like that in the movie. However, the movie itself is about a woman that. Is she falling in love with him because she's falling in love with him, or is it Stockholm Syndrome? And that's a big problem if your audience is watching a movie and they're thinking, that this woman is suffering from Stockholm Syndrome. And because of that movie got a lot of flack.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
He kidnapped her, and then after a while, she kind of broke down and fell in love with him. Well, did she really fall in love with him, or is it just psychological torture that he succeeded at?
But it didn't matter.
And there's even a psychological torture scene where he's like, she's running around trying to avoid him, and he's on the mic yelling at her until she gives him his attention. That's not two people coming together. And I get it. I don't think the writer intended to do that, but that is the side effect of the film.
Yeah.
So and it does matter. You don't want a happy ending with a woman that falls in love with a guy through Stockholm Syndrome, because that kind of reinforces every lonely dude out there to just start, shackling more people in their houses. She'll love me eventually.
She'll love me eventually. So, yes.
Yeah.
I didn't take that message out of it. I was able to say this is a sci-fi movie. This guy's in an impossible situation where something horrible's happened, and he made a choice that was bad, but not above anybody. Like, I'm going to be stuck on this thing for the rest of my life. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make the best of it.
I think it's a good movie. I think it's a good movie, and I think it's worth talking about. But romanticizing the plot is kind of where I have an issue with
What if Jennifer Lawrence's character wakes up first and she wakes up Chris Pratt?
I think that's a whole interesting situation. Yeah, I would actually be more interested in watching that.
Yeah.
They had to cast Chris Pratt in that role because he's so charming. If they cast somebody else in that role that's less charming, it's people automatically go into the Stockholm Syndrome thought. They had to put in a guy, that was winking a smile, you like him right away. They had to. Otherwise, the movie completely fails. So think about that.
Is it Stockholm Syndrome if Jennifer Lawrence wakes up first, though? Does that happen, do you think?
I have no idea. I want to see that movie, and I want to see that movie from that angle.
Because Nancy Sinatra went to her dad and said, "You're not allowed to sing 'These Boots Are Made for Walking.' When you sing it, it's abusive. When I sing it, it's cute and fun." And she was right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That is a matter of casting, and shows the importance of proper casting.
Yeah.
How would you have done that, John? How would you have played it?
It boils down to some characters can pull off certain things and rope us in ways that other characters just cannot. And all of those choices are important. And all of those choices have the potential to divide. And that's why we love movies so much.
Absolutely. Like, if you put Mickey Rourke instead of Chris Pratt on Passengers, you're not going to get the same film.
Yeah, you already did that in 9.5 weeks. It was awesome.
Right.
Hey, I want to ask you again about Star Wars. One more thing I thought of, too. When you start to break canon, like making Jedis be able to astral project themselves to somewhere else, don't you have to account for that? Because why didn't the old guys do that? Yoda's super powerful.
Yeah. So they can do it in the expanded universe canon. There's entire books about people being able to do that. But within the films themselves, they get away with it because there's a little foreshadowing for that moment. So Kylo says to Rey, "You're not the one force connecting us because it would kill you." So that's the writer saying, "Hey, guess what, guys? This takes a lot of effort." So then when we see Luke have his Jedi heart attack, we understand why, even though it's so frustrating to see that happen. It's just, I respect Rian Johnson. The guy's, he's a professional. He's made it, but I don't feel that was the right choice to have that. I really feel Luke should have had that mentor moment where he's passing the baton.
Yes.
For Rey, like Obi-Wan did for Luke. And if we had that moment, I think the entire movie, all of the frustrating subplots would have all been forgiven. But instead, we have an astral projection of Luke playing coy with Kylo and then having a stroke on a mountaintop and dying. As visually beautiful as he was disappearing and the cape floating away. Visually it was beautiful, but that was a tragic end for that character, that he didn't get to have a proper goodbye for. It doesn't give the audience closure, basically. This is a character we followed since he was a young pipsqueak moisture farmer that wanted to be a pilot for the Imperial. And we followed him through the hero's journey, basically, verbatim, where he became the master. And then just to have him peace out like that in a very meek sort of way is disrespectful to the journey that the character's been on. And it bites the audience wrong. I would have had him be on the planet doing the battle and all that shit, and then he gets killed. He gives up his life for them to escape. There's the connection between him and Rey. She feels the moment, and then he's dead and gone. That was the way to play it. I don't think he played it that way because he was feeling pressured to be original, and that's fine, be original, but it's okay to still use tropes in the traditional way when it works for the story, even if people see it coming, because it's the build up of the tension that is important, not necessarily the moment itself. And so building up to the moment of, okay, Luke is going to die now, people would have been on their fucking seats, just on the edge, waiting for that moment where he has his Obi-Wan goodbye. But instead, we get a wink and a smile, and then he dies, and it doesn't work.
Also, too, there's a little bit of story problem with Leia dying outside of the craft. He doesn't seem to respond to that. And it just, I just wish they would have made some different choices. I would love to have seen what Luke's character does, watch him realize the things that led up to Ben standing up and saying, you can strike me down, but I'm always going to be more powerful because I've graduated up to the next level.
Yeah.
Yeah, though we would have seen it coming, it would have, I don't know, I think
people didn't just want that line, they needed that line. They needed that line for closure, and they didn't get it. And it's a damn shame.
We waited and waited and waited for Luke Skywalker. They teased it in the last movie, and this is what they delivered. And
Yeah.
it was...
It's disappointing.